Hey, what up ladies and gents? It's your favorite Asian robot right here. Hopefully your favorite content creator for the First Descendant. And today I'm going to go through all of the characters that will be available to you at the launch of the game. Alright, there are a total of 14 Descendants that are available right from launch. And I'm going to go through all of them, talk about their abilities, and maybe do a little theory crafting, you know, get you guys hyped and prepped for what's about to come. Now, if you guys would like to, please also don't forget to use my official code when making premium purchases in game. All of this will help you support me without spending an extra cent. Nexon will foot the bill. All you got to do when buying your stuff, all right, when you're buying the premium currency, whatever, input my code, you'll be supporting me and you'll be making even more content happen for the First Descendant. So if you're ready now, let's get started with this. I'm going to start by talking about Lepic. Here we go. Okay guys, the First Descendant that we're going to talk about, get it, First Descendant, is Lepic. He is one of your 3 starter Descendants, and if you've already seen my video on the starters, then you already know about him, but for the sake of those who haven't, I'm going to go through him anyway. Lepic is called the Final Grenadier. He is a DPS type Descendant, and he mainly uses explosions and grenades to attack. However, although his grenades are fire attribute, not all of them deal damage, and I'll talk about that in a second. Alright, let's start with his passive skill. Lepic's passive is called Close Call. This passive gives him a chance of surviving fatal damage during battle. So if he's getting shot up, he might actually just survive even though a shot might kill him. This can actually be pretty useful, and I know some people are going to definitely like this, especially if they come from a certain other game. Alright? Grenade. Grenade is Lepic's first ability and his main skill, I should say. It deals an explosive... It explodes and deals fire damage in an area effect around the impact. So you can use this, it's pretty straightforward. It's a grenade, you toss it, it explodes, you know, that's what it does. However, it does have an extra effect. If you use Lepic's second skill, which is Overclock, then your grenade will deal extra burn damage when it explodes. So take note of that. Okay, Overclock is Lepic's second ability. What Overclock does is that it increases his skill attack. That means all of his skills will do more damage. Well, all of his skills that can do damage will do more damage. And it will add a burn effect to his grenade and his overkill ultimate. Alright? For a set duration of time. Overclock does not have any other effects by itself, so just be aware of that. Now, his third skill is called Traction Grenade. This one is a pure utility skill. It does not deal any extra damage by itself. What Traction Grenade does is that it throws a Traction Grenade, pulls in all enemies, and then you can either blow them up with your normal grenade, overkill, shoot them up with your guns, whatever you want to do. However, even if you overclock, Traction Grenade does not get any benefits from overclock because it is a pure utility skill. Alright? Last but not least is Lepic's ultimate. Lepic's ultimate is called Overkill. This transforms his prosthetic arm into a full-on gun that he can use to blast his enemies with. His gun arm will basically fire a powerful shell at the enemy, and the shell will be maintained at the landing point for a set period of time, inflicting constant damage. It will deal extra burns whenever Overclock is active. And that is Lepic in a nutshell. Where is Lepic used? Lepic would generally be a DPS hero, but he's more for missions or storyline content, which is exactly where I'm going to use him. Void Intercept battles, you're likely to see a bit less use from Lepic, because there aren't as many minions in Void Intercept battles. It's mostly about fighting a single boss. So his AoE abilities aren't exactly as useful for that, but I'm pretty sure that Lepic mains will still find an interesting way to play him. So that about covers it for Lepic. Let's move on to the next Descendant, shall we? Okay, ladies and gents, the second hero that we're going to talk about is Ajax. Ajax is a tanky Descendant, and he is designed to protect your team. So let's go through him. You already know that Ajax is a tank. His element is neutral. He is a non-attribute type Descendant, so he doesn't have a specific element. And he is pretty interesting overall because you have to understand his passive skill affects everything. Alright? Ajax's passive is called Event Horizon. Event Horizon allows him to acquire void energy after using skills, and when the void energy reaches its maximum amount, it enhances his skills and grants them additional effects. Let's take a look at some of this, alright? With his first ability, Orbit Barrier, Ajax, now he's also one of the starters, so you should already know about this if you watched the starter video. Forgot to say that at the start, but doesn't really matter. Alright, Orbit Barrier will create a shield in front of Ajax. If you guys have played games like Overwatch, it will remind you of Sigma, all right? He can just create a shield in front of him, or Ramatra actually. He'll just create a shield in front of him. The durability of the shield increases in proportion to his hit points and defense. Now, if it is enhanced by Void Energy, his shield will reflect damage proportional to his defense stat to enemies hitting the barrier, which can make this pretty darn cool. Reflecting damage is pretty awesome. Now, his second skill is his movement ability. It's called Void Walk. Void Walk allows him to leap into the air and land on the ground to strike nearby enemies. You ever played Winston from Overwatch? That's exactly what this is. He will leap high, strike the ground, and stun enemies. If this ability is enhanced with Void Energy, the max shield that your character has will be increased for a certain period of time, allowing you to withstand quite a bit of extra punishment. All right? Expulsion is another skill that he has in his arsenal. This one is a simple skill to knock back enemies nearby him. Let's say you grapple toward an enemy and there's several around them. You knock down that enemy, you can use Expulsion to knock them all back. And if you are enhanced by Void Energy, you will have increased knockback range and max shield. This can be used to reposition enemies or knock them into certain hazards, areas, whatever, you know. The uses are up to your creative mindset. However, I tend not to use this very much because, quite frankly, I want the loot, so I want them all right in front of me when I kill them. Now, last but not least is his ultimate ability. Ajax's ultimate ability is called Hypercube. Hypercube will basically create a dome-shaped shield, all right? And the durability of the shield, I believe the shield follows Ajax, and then if you modify it, it'll be stationary. But anyway, the durability increases proportionally to his hit points and defense, and if it is enhanced, much like with the Orbit Barrier, it will reflect damage proportional to his defense to any of the enemies hitting the barrier. So Ajax is all about provoking enemies, taking damage, reflecting them back at his enemies, and also using his abilities. Mana is a serious concern for Ajax. Well, mana, energy, whatever you want to call the blue bar. I'm sure there's a name for it in game, but I must confess I did not familiarize myself with what it's called in game in this specific instance. So I'm just going to call it energy. Your energy, all right, needs to be kept up. So you're going to have to go for mods that give Ajax back energy in whatever way, shape, or form that he does this. And if he uses that to his advantage, then what Ajax can do is he can keep casting his abilities and power up the abilities that really matter, using his mobility abilities to reposition himself and then hitting an Orbit Barrier or a Hypercube whenever he really needs to reflect damage back to his enemies. That's the plan with Ajax. All right? Thank you very much for listening. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, the third descendant on our list is called Viessa, the Cold-Blooded Hunter. She is also one of the 3 starters, and she is a debuffer. If we take a look at her description, Viessa is a ice type. I know it says chill there, but you know, I call chill ice. She's an ice attributed descendant, and her main role in the team is to debuff enemies with Ice Shackle and also deal a significant amount of damage. But of course, her damage will be just a little bit less than an actual DPS hero. That said, Viessa is no slouch. She is definitely one of the strongest descendants in the game, and her abilities are all geared toward that. All right, let's take a look at what Viessa can do. Viessa's passive ability is called Ice Sphere. She'll create an ice sphere floating around her body when inflicting enemies with the Ice Shackle effect. This is proportional to the effect stage. The ice sphere will automatically fly toward nearby enemies and deal damage to the target and its surroundings. So she can constantly create ice spheres and absolutely decimate her opponents. I remember there was a cooldown to this during the technical test, but there really shouldn't be because it's part of her whole kit. Okay, Frost Shards is a first ability. Frost Shards will fire an exploding ice beam that will inflict damage and Ice Shackle around the area it hits. All right, it will give 1 stage of Ice Shackle when it hits the target and 2 stages of Ice Shackle if the target is hit by the exploding area. So you can put a lot of Ice Shackle on your targets up front. Now, her next skill is called Frost Road. This is her mobility skill, and what Viessa will do is that she will increase her running speed and shield and she will create ice sheets on the ground wherever she stands. Now, when enemies come into contact with the ice sheets, they will be inflicted with 2 stages of Ice Shackle. So this can be combined with her passive to deal damage while running around enemies. Think Bunny, but with Frost. All right? Now, Cold Snap. If any of you have ever played D&D, this is basically your cone of cold, all right? Cold Snap will cause her to release an arc of cold air in front of her, which will inflict damage and the Ice Shackle debuff, all right? It's a very quick skill that can be instant cast, so if you got somebody in front of you, bang, they all get frozen. It's pretty useful if you can get the angle right and position yourself correctly. Last but not least is Viessa's ultimate. Viessa's ultimate is called Blizzard. Pun not intended. If you've ever played Mei from Overwatch 2, her ultimate is Viessa's ultimate, all right? She will put a blizzard drone at a particular location and will create a snowstorm that explodes over time, inflicting damage and ice shackle to all enemies caught within. This can then trigger her passive, which is pretty darn awesome. In fact, if you actually look at the Meet the Viessa video on the First Descendant channel, you will actually see this being used against bosses, especially when they're in their phase where they get knocked down. That's the time to use her ultimate. And I've seen it in action and it looked pretty powerful, to be honest. So I look forward to seeing how this goes in Void Intercept battles. Where is Viessa used? Viessa is similar to Lepic, but she's got a lot more areas of the story and Void Intercept battles where she can be utilized, especially because she's a debuffer. So when you're in the Void Intercept battles, like I said, there'll be certain knockdown phases where the boss cannot move. That is probably the best time to use Viessa's ultimate. Her abilities can also help her against the minions in Void Intercept battles, and in other activities, she's pretty useful in both defense missions, killing missions. Viessa is very versatile, so you will not regret picking her as your starter. Is she the best? Yes and no. There are good uses to Viessa, but I'm an explosive man, so I'll be going with Lepic. That being said, if you like Viessa, grab the ultimate Viessa. You won't regret that pack. And use my code. Okay? Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so the next Descendant on the list is supposed to be Jayber, but I put Bunny here first because I know many of you are excited about Bunny. Bunny is one of the first Descendants that you will actually... First Descendants, get it? That you will earn in the game for free. She's actually a quest, a side quest near the storyline, and as you go through the story, you'll pretty much get all of her components. So Bunny will be one of the first Descendants that you get to have in the game. She is the Speedster. She is this game's version of the Flash, and she is pretty darn cool. So, let's talk about her role. Bunny is a nuker. What does that mean? Slightly different from DPS, Bunny is all about big burst damage and also being able to nuke enemies really quickly. Alright? She can deal continuous damage when sprinting, and she also has an ultimate that is insane. Her attribute is electricity, lightning, shock, whatever you want to call it. And she is also the poster girl for the First Descendant. So get used to Bunny because she's awesome. Now, her passive skill is called Rapid Foot. It charges her electricity whenever she's moving and inflicts damage to nearby enemies whenever she lands after a double jump. So she's got an attack that she can have anytime simply by double jumping and dropping on enemies. That's insane, right? Now, her first skill is called Thrill Bomb. Thrill Bomb allows her to summon an electro orb to attack nearby enemies and inflict them with the electrocute effect. Alright, I'll have to actually go into the game and figure out what the electrocute effect actually does, but I'm sure I'll be able to tell you as soon as the game starts because it should be in the library section. Now, her second skill, Light Speeding. This one is actually similar to Viessa's skill, or perhaps Viessa's skill is similar to Bunny's skill, but Light Speeding will increase her sprint speed significantly and allow her to charge up more electricity. This is then used for her other abilities because Lightning Emission. Lightning Emission as well as Light Speeding are Bunny's combo. Lightning Emission allows her to deal damage whenever she's moving around, and she'll inflict enemies with not only damage but also the electrocute effect. So this is pretty useful and can be used together with a grappling hook to achieve some pretty insane pulses of damage. So that is the way to use Bunny. Abuse this. She's a speedster, she needs to stay constantly moving, and you should utilize that as much as you can. Now, last but not least, her ultimate. Bunny's ultimate is called Maximum Power. She will shoot out electricity and inflict a ton of damage. The damage increases in proportion to the skill duration. So it's something you want to use after charging up the maximum amount of electricity. You run. Okay, she's got the maximum amount of electricity and then she bursts all of it out. This is what you want to do with Bunny. Bunny is pretty darn cool. So where's she used? Bunny shines in defense missions as well as elimination missions. She runs in and starts dealing lots of damage in an area of effect. Combine her with Lepic's traction grenade and you have literally somebody to nuke everybody that just got pulled together. You can also combine her with Viessa, who can shackle, debuff enemies, make them slow while Bunny goes fast. She works together with so many different characters in the game. And her ultimate allows her some degree of viability in boss fights as well, talking about the Void Intercept fights or just common boss fights, because she can literally nuke them with her electric beam. Alright, don't sleep on that. This was some of the highest damage I used to be able to do. I used to see a boss just zzz, you know, unleash that full power of Palpatine. Unlimited power! Something like that, alright? Thank you for listening about Bunny. Let's move on to the next Descendant. Now we're going to follow the list properly, so I just really had to go through Bunny first. Alright, ladies and gents, now it's time to talk about Jayber, the genius engineer. This guy is one of my favorite Descendants. I enjoyed him during the beta, and I would love to get him again. But, you know, I'm going to go through the free-to-play process of unlocking him. Jayber is pretty darn cool. Why? Okay. Jayber is a utility-type character. He is sort of a support, but also has damage-dealing capabilities. He is a utility-type DPS who uses turrets to their maximum capabilities. He can summon turrets for assault and recovery, and he is non-attribute, so he doesn't have a specific element. Let's talk about his passive. Jayber's passive is called Turret Sync. His attack increases when the assault turret and medical turret are both summoned in the field. His first ability is Assault Turret. Jayber will summon an assault turret to attack the enemy. If the turret is enhanced, it launches attacks into the nearby area. Alright? So it gains AoE when enhanced. His second ability is called Medical Turret. Medical Turret will summon a turret that can heal allies and distract enemies. If it is enhanced, it restores mana. This is why Jayber is so crucial for some fights. He is one of the only characters that can restore mana to others. So do not sleep on the medical turret. Next, multi-purpose gun. Jayber will change his gun into a multi-purpose gun, and if a turret is hit by the multi-purpose gun, the turret will enter an enhanced state. So if you need more recovery, shoot your medical turret. If you need more attack, shoot your assault turret. It's up to you what you want to do with the multi-purpose gun. Last but not least is called Reactivate. This is Jayber's special ability. Ultimate ability. It will recall all of his summoned turrets and inflicts powerful damage to nearby enemies. Basically, he blows up his turrets, recalls them all, and after using total recall, you will enter the overhaul state. And then, when you're in the overhaul state, turrets will be summoned immediately in their enhanced states. I'll actually need to test whether or not you can summon both in their enhanced state or just one, but either way, Jayber is fantastic. What is his role? Jayber is, and was before Yujin, the only support character in the game. So Jayber was indispensable for tough fights because he can heal with his turrets, he can shoot enemies with his turrets, he can, you know, use his multi-purpose gun to make those turrets effects even better. And he's just overall awesome. I love Jayber because he was such a great addition to the team. And look at that face, he's so handsome. Alright, Jayber is my favorite, hands down. So I can't wait to be utilizing him as well. However, he does have a competitor for the support role, and you'll probably hear about that later on. Now, let's move on to the next Descendant. Alright, let's go. Okay, ladies and gents, the next Descendant I'm going to talk about is Sharen, the Assassin in the Shadows. Sharen is a close-range damage dealer type of enemy. Descendant, my god, my words, I'm fumbling, I'm sorry. I'm recording this late at night, but I really wanted to get this video out for you guys. Sharen is all about close range damage, but she doesn't hesitate at range combat either. She's an assassin type melee dealer with an electric element. Electric arc, as it's called. Using her camouflage, she can close the distance to her enemies wherever she desires and ambush them anytime, anywhere. Her passive skill is called Assassinator. Her damage increases when attacking an enemy that is not attacking Sharen. This is really well combined with Ajax, alright? Because if Ajax is busy drawing fire, Sharen can attack weak spots on enemies and deal a lot of extra damage. Killing enemies with a skill in the ambush state resets the cooldown for active camouflage, alright? I'll talk about that in a little bit. Her first active skill is called Cut Off Beam. She attacks enemies with an electrical blade to deal damage and inflicts them with the electrocute effect. Alright, pretty simple. Her second skill is Active Camouflage. This is kind of like a mobility skill and an ambush skill. She will hide from enemies, and when attacking or using skills, Active Camouflage state will end immediately, regardless of the time remaining. When Active Camouflage ends, Sharen enters ambush mode, increasing the damage of her next attack. So she can use this to inflict some heavy damage, whatever that attack might be. Alright? You can position for a big strike, or you can position for some serious gunfights. Alright? Now, her third ability is called Impact Rounds. She will launch built-in explosives forward from her arm to stun her enemies. This is a fairly simple skill, but it's mostly a utility skill, so just be aware of that. Okay, it's all about utility rather than actually dealing a lot of damage. Damage dealing belongs to Cut Off Beam and Flash Short Sword. Okay, this is Sharen's ultimate ability. She will target enemies within her aiming range and throw multiple knives to attack them. The knives explode to inflict enemies with damage and the electrocute effect. I do believe you can use it right after Active Camouflage. So, do not hesitate to combine the two and wipe out groups of enemies without them even seeing you. Alright, that'll trigger the Assassinator passive. So, using Sharen is all about knowing when to go invisible, when to strike, how to get in close, and how to dish out maximum damage. Vanish when the time is right, and you will strike your opponents down with fury. Alright? Where is she used? Sharen is mostly single target DPS, so quite frankly, she functions best in Void Intercept battles, as well as situations where you have to deal with bosses, big targets, things like that. She's less of an AoE character, but she's pretty useful overall. So, enjoy Sharen, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, ladies and gents, the next character that I'm going to talk about is called Gley. Gley is called the Hope Seeker, alright? And she is a descendant that is absolutely insane. Why? Well, let me start by explaining that Gley is the only descendant without any shields. She is a straight up berserker who takes everything with health. Defense and hit points are going to be your best friends, alright? Defense and hit points. Chant that mantra to yourself because that's what you need to do to survive as Gley. Okay? Gley is a utility dealer who becomes stronger the more she gnaws on herself. She unleashes the rage inside her to subdue her enemies, and she does not have an RK element. Her passive skill is called Thirst, which is probably what a lot of people feel for Gley, but anyway. Gley will create life spheres whenever she kills enemies, and these life spheres can recover her hit points, and it will store the power of life whenever she absorbs them. The power of life can be used to empower various abilities. Now, the next thing is her first ability. Her first active skill is called Frenzied. Gley will consume some of her hit points to enter a berserk state. Alright, when in her berserk mode, she goes Super Saiyan, which is her white hair that you're going to see right there, and she basically makes her long distance weapons, i.e. her guns, have increased weapon attack and penetration. This makes her almost exclusively a long distance combatant, but she can dish out a lot of damage in her berserk state. Do not underestimate this. Her next skill is called Life Siphon. Life Siphon allows her to deal damage to nearby enemies and restore her hit points, but the range is extremely small. It is almost a melee attack, so please be careful, alright? In her berserk mode, her damage will increase, and in her normal mode, damage inflicted by enemies will decrease for a certain amount of time after using Life Siphon. Next, Increased Sensory. This is Gley's badass ability, alright? When she uses Increased Sensory, she will add infinite ammo, alright, during her frenzy mode, or if she's in a non-frenzied state, she increases her movement speed and hit point recovery, during which her life sphere generation rate is also increased, alright? Increased Sensory is extremely important to Gley's playstyle, And this is what is actually used to absolutely decimate bosses. Why? You can use increased sensory in her berserk state with some life recovery mods and basically snipe bosses with infinite ammo, and then once that's done, recover your hit points real quickly. That's what Gley can do. So throw some cooldowns in and Gley will always have infinite clips of ammo. It works with almost all types of weapons. It's absolutely insane. Gley excels at everything, but she's more of a late game, in my opinion, late game Descendant, where you have to, you know, focus on her build really well to ensure she doesn't die from using her own abilities. I tried to use her early game during the technical test, failed miserably. Not as good as I would have thought. Okay, last but not least is her ability, Massacre. This is her ultimate ability. Gley will change her firearm to Massacre, add additional skill damage during the frenzied state, and it will inflict a stun effect on enemies hit. It also does massive damage, hence why it's called Massacre. The more power of life you have, the more Massacre can do. So, store up your power of life and massacre all your foes with your ultimate. That's what Gley does. Just make sure you can recover her hit points because, like I said, she's got no shields. 0 shields. Everything goes to her hit points. So Gley walks that fine line between death and dishing out serious damage. Enjoy, and let's move on to the next Descendant. Okay, ladies and gents, next let me introduce you to Blair, the deadly cook. This guy, alright, is hilarious. Why? He is a damage over time damage dealer, but he's also one of the best critical damage dealers in the game. Let me explain a bit more. Blair's abilities are that he is a chef who deals continuous damage and manipulates fire. He gains energy by adjusting firepower, and the hot dishes he throws traps the enemies eternally in a flame zone. Okay, that's a spicy description, but the actual mechanics are a little bit different. And of course, his attribute is fire. I don't think I need to tell you that. All right. His passive skill is called Pitmaster. Blair will increase the critical damage that he does whenever he's hitting enemies that are in a burn state. He also increases critical strike chance depending on the number of stoves in the battlefield. What are stoves? Well, that's caused by his first active ability. His first active ability is called Blaze Up. He will spurt flame to deal damage to nearby enemies and create a stove. The stove inflicts constant damage and burn effects to nearby enemies, increase the area of his abilities, and he can set the whole battlefield aflame while becoming insanely good at critting them with his guns. Next, Extinguish. He will retrieve all the stoves on the battlefield and restore his mana. Retrieving a stove increases his defenses for a short period of time, which is actually pretty useful because his playstyle is going to revolve around burning enemies, and then, you know, when he needs them, Extinguish, restore his mana, and he's ready for the next round. Okay? Now, his third ability is called Burn Taste. This one is where he spurts flames forward, similar to Viessa's Cone of Cold, right, as I call it. But enemies near the flame's arrival point are inflicted with constant damage and burn effect. Burn Taste is actually a continuous beam of fire. I think some of you would have seen this in the gameplay footage, things like that. Blair is just burning people with his arm out. Yeah. For the pyromaniacs among us, Blair is going to be your favorite character real quickly, alright? But Burn Taste does not create a stove. So keep in mind that you have to create stoves first with Blaze Up and then use Burn Taste. So you're going to have to recover mana in other ways, alright? And especially if you're spending mana on Burn Taste, you're not going to recover that with Extinguish. So just be careful of Burn Taste. It's useful, but its range is, if I recall, fairly short. And it doesn't really create stoves, but it does inflict a lot of burn, so be aware of that. Okay, last but not least is Blair. I almost called him Blaze. Blair's ultimate ability, Deadly Cuisine. Deadly Cuisine allows Blair to throw a large fireball forward. The large fireball then splits into smaller fireballs that cause an extra explosion. The explosion damage inflicts burn effects and creates stoves on the ground. The stove will deal constant damage to nearby enemies and inflicts them with the burn effect. So when you've got a big group of enemies, target the biggest one, fireball him, and then the whole area is going to get lit up. This is what Blair does, and he is so useful. What is his role in a team? Pretty much the same as Lepic. Blair is all about dishing out that heavy damage, AoE damage, so he's best used in missions or operations where he has to deal with hordes. And he does have a little bit of utility in void intercept battles, but quite a bit less, I have to admit, than Lepic, because Lepic's overkill can be targeted and inflicts continuous damage, whereas Blair is mostly reliant on deadly cuisine and the stoves. So now again, I could change my opinion based on the kind of builds that are available with him, but I probably would not take Blair into void intercept battles. Lepic would probably be my choice, but still, we'll see. However, Blair is extremely handsome, so don't forget to pick him up. All right, let's move on to the next Descendant. Okay, the next Descendant we're going to talk about is Freyna. Freyna is the dominator of Venom. All right, and I'm sure there are several people who wish Freyna would dominate them. But that being said, Freyna is a very popular character, not just because of her looks, but because she's pretty awesome. Kind of like Blair, she is a damage over time DPS, and her element is toxic. She's one of the only toxic heroes in the game currently, as far as I recall. I'll confirm that as we go on, but as far as I know, Freyna is the only one. Now, she manipulates Venom in different ways and has a plethora of unique abilities and potential builds that can work with that. Let's start by talking about her passive ability. Her passive ability is called Contagion Links. She increases toxic skill power by the number of enemies that are inflicted with the poisons from Freyna's skill. So she can ramp up her power the more enemies there are, and then use it to really destroy her foes. Her first ability is called Toxic Trauma. Toxic Trauma will throw poison to attack the target enemy with damage and inflict room 0 trauma onto nearby enemies. Alright, I do need to look up that effect again because I'm not 100% on what it does. I didn't get to play Freyna as much as I would have liked. Okay, her second skill is called Defense Mechanism. It significantly increases her defense, and there is a chance of inflicting room 0 trauma to enemies upon attack. Her third ability is called Decompose Poison. She throws toxins to form a toxic swamp. Alright, similar a bit to Blaze's first ability, enemies entering the toxic swamp receive continuous damage, become inflicted with poison, and venom soaked. Enemies inflicted with venom soaked will leave toxic footprints as they move, and enemies that touch the toxic footprints will also become inflicted with poison. Poison on poison, very suitable for groups of enemies, alright? So you need to mulch groups of enemies. That's where Freyna comes in. She is deadly and dangerous. Do not hesitate to pick her. She is very, very strong. Alright, her ultimate ability is called Venomous Baptism. She will change her current firearm to the Venom Baptism, and enemies that are hit with Venom Baptism bullets are inflicted straight away with room 0 trauma. As this is very crucial to her abilities, I will definitely have to find out what it actually does. Alright, but I have no doubt that it will be quite a deadly debuff or a lot of damage. Either way, I can't wait to see what Freyna can do, and for those of you picking her, use my code. Use my code, okay? She's even got a maid outfit. Use my code. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Okay, ladies and gents, the next Descendant that I'm going to talk about is Valby. Alright? Valby is a constant damage dealer that, although she uses water, is actually non-attribute, so just keep that in mind. Water is not an element in this game. She is a dealer of continuous damage who moves around freely through her water arcade. A terrifying torrent to her enemies, she's always a refreshing ocean wave to her teammates. Her passive ability is that when she's using skills while standing on water, she consumes less mana. So you can create a mana restore build with her and use up a lot of her abilities to dish out everything. Her first ability is called Bubble Bullet. Bubble Bullet will cause her to bounce a bubble bullet forward and create a small puddle where the bubble bullet impacts and where she stands. Enemies in the small puddle take continuous damage and are inflicted with laundry. I'm gonna have to look up the laundry effect. I didn't play Valby, I know Arcane did, but that effect sounds hilarious. Plop Plop is her second ability. Alright, and Plop Plop will basically create a large puddle where she's standing, and then Valby will dive into that. Valby then pops out at a selected location in a large puddle. Enemies in the large puddle take continuous damage and are inflicted with laundry. So here's the thing. Plop Plop is a teleport mobility skill that she can use to get right into the thick of combat and dish out insane amounts of damage together with Bubble Bullet. Now, Laundry. Laundry is also another movement skill, so Valby is very mobile. Valby becomes liquefied, and when liquefied, she cannot take her feet off the ground or use skills, but she can move through enemies and her movement speed and defense is increased. Alright? When moving while liquefied, she creates a path of water that deals continuous damage to enemies and inflicts the laundry status effect. Alright? So her ability is called Laundry, and the status effect is called Laundry. Valby out here being a washing machine. Alright, finally, her ultimate ability is called Laundry Bomb. Laundry Bomb changes her equipped weapon to the Laundry Bomb launcher. When the launcher is fired, a laundry bomb is created, pulling in enemies inflicted with laundry and dealing continuous damage. Oh, so Laundry Bomb is her little spin cycle. She's literally a washing machine. All right. Do not hesitate to pick up this extremely cute damage dealer. All right, use my code. I'm in a gremlin face here. Use my code. All right. When you're buying the premium currency to pick up Valby. But Valby is amazing. Wash all your opponents in the water and then hit them with the Laundry Bomb and boom, they are gonna be down. They are gonna be down for the count. All right. Valby benefits the most from increasing her skill, areas, damage, all that kind of stuff. And she is pretty much useful for all content except for Void Intercept battles. As you can tell from abilities, Valby is mostly designed for area of effect, so she struggles a bit in Void Intercept, but don't worry, you've got Gley for that. Alright, let's move on to the next one, shall we? Okay, ladies and gents, last but not least of the original 11 Descendants is Kyle the Controller. This guy is, it says bruiser, but this guy is a nuker. His ultimate inflicts the most damage I have seen in the game. You see that thing where he flies at the enemy? That's his ultimate. He literally launches himself. Anyone that catches this reference, he literally does a Dogen and flies toward enemies and explodes on them. He is Iron Man with a vengeance, all right? Let's talk about Kyle. He literally embodies the name Kyle. He probably drinks Monster Energy all day. Kyle is a non-attribute descendant who is considered a tank but deals a lot of damage and generates and manipulates magnetic fields. Alright? His passive ability is that he acquires magnetic force through his skills. When his shield is completely depleted, he recovers shield and magnetic force over a certain period of time. Alright? So he can recover his shield straight away. My god, he is glorious. Kyle is amazing. You should not sleep on him. Now, his first ability is Repulsion Dash. He will dash toward enemies dealing damage and recovering magnetic force. This was a little bit buggy during the technical beta, but I think it has been fixed, alright? His next skill is called Magnetic Bulwark. He will create a frontal barrier to protect against enemy attacks. He recovers magnetic force depending on the type of projectile blocked. As far as I know, this is something that you have to put up. So use it when you're getting shot at, use it when you're getting smacked. That's when you use Magnetic Bulwark, okay? Magnetism Spurt. When damaged, magnetic force is reduced instead of hit points or shields. After a certain period of time, the magnetic force will detonate to deal damage around him. Okay? So this is basically something whereby he gets right into combat with his dash, alright? Increases his magnetic force as much as he can, and then he uses Magnetism Spurt to tank all that damage while killing everything, and then whatever's not dead, explosion, boom. Alright? Last but not least is this guy's ultimate. Like I said, Kyle embodies the name Kyle. He is literally snorting monster energy at all times. Okay, his ultimate ability is called Superconductivity Thrusters. It literally lets him fly. When landing, he will deal damage in an area around his landing zone, consuming all accumulated magnetic force. The damage dealt is proportional to the amount of magnetic force consumed. If you consume maximum magnetic force, this guy's ability does an insane amount of damage. I'm not kidding. He can nuke bosses in one shot. That's Kyle for you. Alright? He will punch through the drywall. So, do not hesitate to grab him. Do I need to say it again? Okay, code's up there, alright? Thank you very much for listening about Kyle. Now, we're going to talk about the 3 new Descendants that are releasing at launch. I can't wait to check them out. Let's check them out together. Okay, the next Descendant on my list is Esiemo. He is the Explosive Master, alright? Now, I have not played him, so I can only read what's on the website, but basically he is a burst DPS dealer with a fire RK. Alright, his passive skill is called Adventitious Habit. He drops a bomb on the ground and whenever his shield is completely depleted. So if his shields get depleted, he drops a bomb to literally explode people. Okay, great. This guy must be Junkrat's cousin or something. Okay, his first active skill is something called Time Bomb. He will launch a sticky bomb forward and the sticky bomb attaches to an enemy or terrain feature on contact. Okay. His second skill is Blast. He will instantly detonate any of the attached bombs. The bomb damage increases with the number of attached bombs. Oh. So I would say probably toss your time bombs all onto the enemy and then blast it all. Okay. Guided Landmine. He will place a guided landmine at the current location. Once placed, the guided landmine will fly to an enemy within its detection range and attach to it. Okay, lovely. I like that. Okay, so he'll have to use Time Bomb, Guided Landmine, and then blast them all at once. RK Explosion is his ultimate, and he will start moving forward. On collision with an enemy while charging, he inflicts knockback. When the movement ends, he deals damage to nearby enemies and removes buffs from them. Ooh. After the skill ends, Esiemo enters the Madness state. Okay, I'll have to look up what Madness does, but that does sound pretty badass. So he's all about attaching bombs to targets and then detonating them once you've attached enough bombs. To me, that sounds pretty badass. If you guys are trying him out, use my code and let me know how he goes, okay? Because I'll have to earn him for free. It might take some time. But if you guys get him early and you try him out, code is up there. Let me know how he goes. I'm excited. Okay, ladies and gents, next on my list is Enzo, the best quartermaster. Enzo looks like that one guy that's really organized and cool under pressure. He is a support character, alright, who uses supply drones. He commands the battlefield by supplying ammo to allies, very important, okay, and launches long-range attack with drones at the same time, okay. His passive skill is called Shoot Support. He grants fire support to allies within an area around Enzo, increasing their maximum ammo capacity. This efficiency of this effect increases marginally with the number of Enzos in the squad. Efficiency increases when Enzo disarms the security of the encrypted vault, and rewards increase when this happens. Okay. Start Supply is his first ability. He sounds like a very interesting character from his passive alone. He summons a bullet supplying device at a designated location, supplies bullets to allies that approach the device. The bullet supplying device can be used once by each ally and disappears when everyone has used it or its duration ends. That's pretty useful, so he literally can call down a supply crate. Okay, Explosive Drone. He launches an explosive drone forward. The explosive drone explodes on contact with an enemy or terrain object, dealing damage. I wonder if it's guided. We'll have to see. Enhanced Combat Suit. He summons a shield recovery comms. When the shield recovery comms is first summoned, it recovers Enzo's energy shield by a certain amount, then continues to recover the energy shield through Enhanced Combat Suit effect. Okay. So, continuously recovers his shield, I suppose, which is pretty interesting. But does this only benefit him? Huh. We'll have to test it out and find out. Last but not least is called Perfect Support. This is his ultimate. He summons a small supply ship to supply himself and his allies. The small supply ship periodically provides supply bullets and grants perfect support to allies. The small supply ship attacks enemies in front while it's active, and when the skill ends, it fires a missile forward that causes a big explosion at its destination. My god. This will mean that if all 4 of your allies are in the team in the Void Intercept battle, this could cause some serious damage. I wonder how long it'll last, to be honest, because it seems like a pretty good ultimate. The fact that it can continuously supply bullets, this guy will keep your ammo up. In some of the hardest fights in the game, this guy will keep your ammo up. Alright, for those who want to supply your allies with ammo, this is it. Probably combine him with somebody like Jayber or Gley and all that, and you're gonna have a wonderful time. I'm already liking Enzo. I think he's going to be pretty insane. if any of you, you already know drill, code. Okay, if you try him out first, let me know. Okay, I want to know what you'll think of him. Because this guy is only coming at launch. We haven't tested him or anything. Like, we, the players, haven't gotten a chance to play him. Because he wasn't in the technical beta. So, look forward to that. Alright, last Descendant, but certainly not least. Okay, the last character in this video is Yujin, the gruff medic. Okay, Yujin definitely looks a little gruff, but also quite handsome. He is a support character who uses his select drones to heal allies. He heals allies and grants them beneficial buffs after determining the distance between the allies and him. Okay, his passive skill is called Stop Overreacting. It significantly reduces the time he takes to rescue allies who are downed. This is very useful in battle because, when your allies are down, somebody has to pick them up. Targets rescued by Yujin get an increase to maximum hit points for a certain period of time, which is pretty useful, especially in intense fights. His first ability is called Solidarity Healing. He summons a recovery drone that attaches to allies to heal them. It recovers the target and increases their attack through an accelerant effect upon dismissal. Wow, so first you heal your allies and then you give them a buff. I can foresee this working really well with Gley. Restructure Serum is his second ability. He will fire a Restructure Serum forward, decreasing the defense and inflicting allergy. I love this. When attacking enemies with allergy, he will heal nearby allies and grant additional healing to allies who attack the enemy, who kill the enemy. Okay. So this is probably very useful for avoid intercept battles. Inflict an enemy with allergy and decrease their defense, which will be pretty awesome. Stimulant Spray. It grants stimulation to his allies. While stimulation is active, incoming damage is reduced and recovery is received when stimulation ends. Oh, so he can give damage reduction to his allies, hopefully in an AoE, I think. Now, his ultimate ability is Hyper-Reactive Healing Ground. He will heal himself and his allies, granting purification and immunity to remove and prevent debuffs. Wow, he has a cleanse, so he's a true support. Additional recovery is based on the number of allies and enemies within range. Yujin is granted hyperactivity effect, increasing his attack and skill power. So if there's a lot of enemies around, he can drop that, okay, and everybody's just gonna go crazy while they're all getting healed. He can remove and prevent debuffs, and darn. Okay, Yujin is definitely sounding cool. He's definitely gonna be very important for team play, so if you're playing with friends, use my code to grab him, and then let me know how he goes, because this guy sounds like a badass, honestly. So I look forward to seeing what he can do in the field. Thank you very much for watching this video. We have now come to the end. You know what? I'll stay on Yujin's page right now, but what I want to say is thank you very much for watching this. I hope you guys will enjoy the First Descendant with me. I hope you guys will enjoy this fantastic game. I am so excited to play with you guys. It's going to be so much fun, so please give it a chance, all right? Use my code if you'd like to support me whenever you're purchasing premium currency. It's up to you if you want to, but I would really appreciate it. Nothing extra will be charged to you, okay? Every time you use my code while buying yourself stuff, Nexon will be the one to pay me. So nothing is going to come out of your pocket. You'd be helping me get paid and helping me make more content. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope this gives you an idea of all the Descendants, what they do, and how they can be utilized. I look forward to playing all these combinations and builds, and if you guys have got exciting builds, share them with us. Let me know. RealAsianRobot@gmail.com. My email is always open to all of your suggestions. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys on the next one. Like, share, and subscribe. Turn your notifications on. That way you don't miss a stream and you don't miss a video. See you in the field, Descendants. I'll be ready.